9 long, exciting months waiting for that life-changing moment that you rush into the hospital and proudly leave with a healthy new addition to your family. Soon you'll be watching this little one begin to crawl, talk, and learn the ropes of life. All the normal dreams a parent has for a child. But there were complications in the delivery. Something went wrong. Instead of a blanket, your little one gets an oxygen tube. Instead of a bottle, your child is fed intravenously. Instead of peaceful sleep, your baby has debilitating seizures. The bright future you envisioned begins to dissolve like mist before your eyes. But this is not the end of the story. Though the journey has begun with a very rocky start, there is a hope to be had. For over 70 years, the Boyer Children's Clinic has devoted itself to placing children suffering neuromuscular disorders and developmental disabilities on a path to overcoming them. Michael Stewart and Ryan Maxwell are here from the Boyer Children's Clinic, and they're next on Spotlight on the Sound.
Welcome to Spotlight on the Sound, a weekend magazine focusing on Puget Sound luminaries whose passion for touching lives is making a difference in our community. And now your host, David Summers.
Hello and welcome to Spotlight on the Sound, Salem Radio Seattle's weekend showcase of the hardest working hearts in our community. It's our hope that you come away from today's show not only with a greater familiarity with a truly great program, but with the inspiration to become involved and to help make the Puget Sound a better and brighter place to live. With me today are Michael Stewart, Executive Director, and Ryan Maxwell, Board Member with Boyer Children's Clinic. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great to be here.
I know, Ryan, that you are a Boyer Children's Clinic parent.
Yes.
Could you tell us what are the first indications that a child has a neuromuscular disorder or developmental delay? How quickly do parents become aware of these things?
Well, Dave, as you mentioned in your intro, sometimes it is right away at birth. Something may go wrong at the very first moment, at the very first breath. Sometimes parents may know ahead of time. There may be test results that come back that indicate some type of problem, literally in the womb. In our case, it was actually not quite that quick. In fact, the entire pregnancy, this is our first child where we had our experience. Pregnancy was picture perfect. My wife was very healthy all the way through, no issues, no problems. All test results came back completely normal, healthy. And in fact, even the day that my daughter's name is Calla. You'll hear me talk about Calla quite a bit. The day that she was born, my wife actually went out to breakfast to celebrate a friend's 30th birthday. We had suspected labor might be beginning that morning, but she still went out to breakfast. I went for a bike ride and ended up doing most of the labor at home, in fact.
Wow.
Just by the book, by the textbook, doing the right steps, and everything was going fine. Ended up going into the hospital so late, in fact, that she was ready to deliver at that moment. Calla was born about half an hour after we got into the hospital.
Wow. Got it really close.
And she was picture perfect. She was healthy, beautiful. All initial testing at the hospital was absolutely fine, absolutely healthy. And in fact, when we came home, it was one of those moments of having spent so much time learning about having your first child, help in the hospital and so forth, and then you come home and you say, well, now what do we do? This is up to us. What do we do?
Yeah.
And those first few months were fine.
Yeah.
Calla developed as you'd expect, as much as we knew how to expect. And it really wasn't until she was between 6 months and a year that we started to notice it was almost like ice melting or water dripping, where things are not aligning like they had been. Her developmental steps are not quite aligning like we'd expect. And it was nothing traumatic. It was nothing, no huge single event, no big marker. It was more just she's not rolling over like she should. She's not propping herself up like we'd expect. And I'll never forget this day, the day we went in for her 1-year checkup with our pediatrician. And we had talked with him a little bit ahead of time about, she's not moving much. Should we be concerned? And he said, well, let's see how she's doing. But at her 1-year checkup, he said, he looked at Calla and he said, Calla, you're pushing my buttons.
Mm.
And when he said those words, it really kind of shook me.
Yeah.
It was that first moment of having to consider the reality of maybe something more formally is amiss here.
Yeah.
And he said, I want you guys to have Calla evaluated at this agency called Boyer Children's Clinic. I know them well. They do fantastic work in cases like this. And we had no idea what we were doing. But that was at least a moment of recognizing a potential problem. And that was our introduction to Boyer at that time.
So give a little overview of the spectrum of physical challenges that affect the children who come to Boyer.
Certainly. So Boyer provides comprehensive services to children that have a wide range of disabilities and developmental delays. Those could be a minor speech delay. They would come into our agency and receive speech therapy. Others have more global developmental delays, which could include autism, cerebral palsy. And so our staff is equipped with personnel that provide services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy. We also have special education preschool program. We have medical services, and then what we also provide are what are called wraparound support services, family support, because our agency, obviously the mission is to provide high quality services for clients, such as Calla, but also important is to make sure that the families, as they walk through their journey at Boyer, have those additional supports. So we have a social worker on staff. We have individuals that act more as navigators. They're called family resources coordinators, but they are helping families access additional services, if it's an interpreter, if it's transportation, understanding what their coverage for insurance may be or may not be. And so really the agency is equipped to provide that comprehensive approach so that we are meeting the needs of the family.
What happens after a parent brings in a child that they suspect may have a delay or neurological disorder?
Well, after that first evaluation, we learned, again, more formally, more officially, that she did have global developmental delay, both gross motor skill delay, fine motor skill delay. And so for a period of 6 months, we had a physical therapist at Boyer come to our home once a week and meet with Calla for an hour and quite literally teach her how to crawl, teach her how to hold herself up. And then from there, work on the next, what's after that? Can we start walking? And that was really powerful. In many ways. I mean, first, just to be connected with an organization of such incredibly caring and wonderful and giving people to walk alongside us. But on the other hand as well, to have to come to grips with the fact that this is a different journey. This is a different path. And when you first hear an evaluation and then you see it in writing that your child has global developmental delay, what does that mean? And where do you go? What do you do? And it's not what you expect at all. It is just, you sometimes will hear about parenting being, well, it's not about you, it's about your kids. Well, I'll tell you what, when you learn that your child has developmental delay, it is not at all what you planned. So being aligned with folks like the resource coordinators and the therapists, that's that first entry into, you're not alone. There is an incredible team of people.
A holistic approach.
Absolutely. And they're right here to help you walk this journey and help you understand more and more. Though you don't know what to do, we are going to help your child and you as a family enter into this. When Calla turned 1.5, we enrolled in the classroom program at Boyer, which is more of it's almost like a preschool. And that's with Mike 6 to 7 other kids or so.
Correct.
Twice a week, and it's kind of learning to be in a classroom setting and with a incredible classroom teacher, just singing songs and teaching social interaction. And Calla was in a class with kids with a wide variety of challenges. Some very physical, others very mental, but across the board. And then to see that, hey, we're not alone.
Yes.
There's other families that are in this very same journey and unique challenges all across the board.
You're now part of an exclusive club.
Yeah, and you can sometimes, and I'll tell you what, to this day, Cal is 6 now. I still struggle with that.
Yeah.
I can still feel like this is just our problem. This is the only, we're the only ones dealing with this. And connection to places like Boyer and people there remind you that you are not alone. You're not alone in this journey.
Michael, I hear just in Ryan's voice the emotion of the connection that he feels with Boyer and his family, his experience. What do you attribute to the success of the Boyer method?
I think what Ryan alluded to earlier, there's not only the high level expertise of the staff, but just their complete buy-in to the mission and caring for these families. And I think we've heard from other families that children come to us with significant challenges, but our staff is able to help celebrate their strengths and help the parents understand that there is hope, and they bring compassion and they bring solutions to these families. And some of the children that we see, they're going to have ongoing life challenges, but our staff can help them understand that there's just these incredible gifts that these children bring, and just the level again of compassion that they bring to each and every family. And I think in addition, our staff are providing, this intensive therapy, intensive education, but we're also connecting the families to some other community outside resources that are also beneficial to the family. And we also, I mentioned earlier that we have a social worker on staff. He leads parent groups. We have a mom support group. So all of these different offerings that really address the different needs that are going to take place along this journey. We have this very short but intensive window of time where we're seeing families of 6 to 18 months. So it's imperative that we, really make the best of that time and work with these families so that they can be lifelong advocates, such as Ryan, for their children once they leave the agency. And so they're equipped to understand, how do I ask for additional resources when I get to a public school system? How do I talk to my insurance agency to make sure that they're providing, the best benefit package that meets the needs of my family? These are things that you may come to think as of just simple things, but they are critical in terms of the family's ability to continue along this path.
Especially for first-time parents. You're going through it, not only you're going through it having a child for the first time, you're going through something that most people don't have any clue about.
Exactly.
Has it always been this way? Could you kind of give a little bit of a history of the Boyer Clinic?
Certainly. So as you mentioned at the top of the show, we have been around for over 70 years. So 1942, a group of doctors, nurses, community volunteers saw a need for children that were given the diagnosis of cerebral palsy. They were, in those days, being institutionalized, and this group saw a need to provide direct support. So they pulled together some fundraising efforts and created what is now known as Boyer Children's Clinic. Through the years, the number of children that were coming to the agency with a variety of diagnoses was increased, and so through some funding from United Way of King County, we were able to create a board of directors in the 60s and really broaden the scope of services. And in 1991, there was a capital campaign that was conducted, and we were able to raise the funds for the current site that is at 1850 Boyer Avenue in the Montlake neighborhood. It's a building that serves about 750 students a year. Any given month, we're serving about 350.
Wow.
And at this time, we're at capacity, and so one of the major directives of the board of directors and staff is looking at expansion. Our vision is to ensure that no child in Seattle would go without services, no child with special needs.
Yes.
And so it's critical that we need to scale up our operations in order to meet that need. And so we're looking at some sites in the northeast Seattle area right now to relieve that capacity and, again, make sure that families such as Ryan's in the future are able to receive the critical care that they require.
Ryan was mentioning a little bit earlier about the he called it preschool. I'm not sure the exact name. What are some of the other programs that you're using?
Certainly. So I mentioned we offer the three therapies. We offer occupational, speech, and physical therapy. We also offer the special education preschool, and that's for children that are 18 months to 3 years old. Government funding dictates that at the age of 3, our children graduate, and that can be a really significant hardship for families because transition for any child, a typically developing child, is tough. But layer on children with special needs, and those transitions become even more challenging. So this summer we are piloting a program for 3 to 5-year-olds at the agency, and we opened up registration, and within 24 hours that registration was full. So we are looking at potentially offering that year-round because of the need. We are also going to be partnering with a group called PEPS. It's a program for early parent support. Ryan mentioned that feeling of isolation. We want to make sure that families are able to find networks of support for each other. And so by offering this PEP support group, which is about 8 to 12 week curriculum for parents that are new, that have a child with special needs, are able to meet and receive, information, resources on, the journey that they will be on. And so we're very excited about that. In addition, we have specialty in children that have visual impairment, and more of a sort of program delivery, service delivery piece is that over 50% of our services take place in the community. So our staff are going to community preschools to provide services. They're going into families' homes. They're meeting at the park. And so that is, continues to be.
You're expanding beyond the walls of the actual clinic.
Exactly. So
you have such a specialized organization demanding qualities that you don't find very common. What are you looking for when you go to hire staff for Boyers?
Certainly. We have long-standing relationships with the University of Washington and many of their graduate programs, and we are looking for individuals that obviously are experts in their field, but also understand, our unique comprehensive approach, the ability to work within a team. As Ryan mentioned, when a child is referred to Boyer, they're going to be assigned with a team. And so any individual that we are looking to hire has to be understanding or comfortable in that environment where they're not only providing direct services to the child, but they're consulting with maybe the child's teacher, the child's physical therapist, so that family is leveraging all of the best that Boyer can offer. And so that's a unique work setting, and it takes someone with a unique set of skills to be able to operate in that environment, because it can be very fast moving. It's critical that communication takes place within Boyer, and so those are the type of individuals that we're looking for.
And Dave, if I may add, I think a level of compassion. It was certainly something that struck us in getting to know our team. Calla's physical therapist and speech therapist and occupational therapist and her classroom teacher and resource coordinator. It is that kind of team. And to a person, each of those folks now are literally lifelong friends.
That's amazing.
Just this past week, my wife brought Calla back into Boyer for an appointment with the medical director there, just to talk about where we are now and possible further diagnoses and that type of thing. And it was a bit of a reunion for Calla to go in and say hi to her team members. So it's definitely a family, a lifelong family environment there.
You mentioned some of the different areas that you're going into. Vision was one of them. What are some of your other longer-term goals for Boyers?
Certainly. So, I mentioned, expansion is currently, both the short and the long-term goal. The board of directors and our senior staff put together a strategic plan in 2012, really looked at growing the organization just to meet the community need. Other long-term goals, we have been, around for 70 years, and many of our kind of operations are, still working well, but we are looking to implement an electronic medical record system that will help us better communicate with many of the outside pediatricians that refer clients or hospitals, so that we can, again, be even better at what we do. I think we're going to be looking at, if this 3 to 5 program works as well as it is currently working, again, extend the continuum of care for Boyer, so it's not just that birth to 3 population that we're serving, but meet the needs of these families that don't want to leave at age 3, but given the government dictate, they have to. And so if we can, longer term goal is to, expand that horizon where they can receive the services that they do.
Could you give us kind of a sense of the pie chart with regard to the way your support breaks down?
Certainly. So, our operating budget currently is about $3.2 million. 50% of that would be the government funding, and that's a variety of sources. Boyer subcontracts with Seattle Public Schools, for example, to provide birth to 3 services. Roughly 20% comes from program fees for some families that have the ability to access their insurance, or families that have Medicaid, we can bill out those services. And then in addition, kind of round out that pie chart, we rely heavily on fundraising, approximately $1 million, so it's about 33% is through foundation grants, major gifts from individuals, and then we do our signature event each year for Boyer is an auction. This year it takes place on November 8th. We'd love to have as many of our wonderful community partners attend. It's a fantastic event. We've had Sherman Alexi is this year, and he and his wife Diane are going to be the auction chairs. We've had Jesse Jones from King 5 as the MC. It's an incredibly energized event, and many of the wonderful families that have been through the agency come, and it's a great way to showcase the best of Boyer.
You mentioned earlier some of the other groups that you more or less direct people to for additional support. Could you go into a little more detail there? What are some of these other organizations you partner with?
Certainly. So Children's Hospital, Ryan mentioned earlier that they recently met with our medical director. Boyer has a unique partnership with a group called the Children's University Medical Group. It's a partnership between the University of Washington and Children's, and Boyer contracts our medical director. So we have a developmental pediatrician, which is very unique for agencies such as ours to offer that level of expertise to our families. And so we continue that partnership not only to provide the medical director, but also to receive referrals, also provide continuing education to our staff. School districts are incredible partners for us. We have to work extremely closely so that when children are exiting the organization, they find the right programs within their neighborhood that will meet the needs of their family. And so it's imperative that our staff understands the strengths and the areas that could potentially require improvement for those different programs, so that we can communicate that to the family so they know how to advocate and get into the right programs. Many United Way of King County has been an incredible partner for us for many years, since the late 60s, not only funding but also continuing education for our staff and for our board of directors. And they've also just been champions for early learning, making sure that there's awareness level not only within the United Way but within the greater Puget Sound area for the services that we provide. And so putting the spotlight on agencies such as Boyer has been an incredible partnership and gift from them. Other partnerships, again, we have very strong connections with many of pediatricians within the medical community, and those are long-standing, and it's important that they understand what types of services Boyer provides, so that when they are working with a family and understand that there may be a delay, they know Boyer is a place that can provide that next set of services. And so we are constantly updating them on any programmatic changes or capacity issues, and so those are critical that we maintain those strong relationships.
So if someone's listening and they are touched by what they've heard, they want to get involved somehow, but they don't know what to do next, what would you advise?
Boyer offers a very comprehensive volunteer program. We have volunteers from range 8 years old all the way through retired population. And it's critical. We have over 11,000 hours of volunteer support each year. So and we can offer it as an individual or as a family or as a community business partner. We've had many, Boeing, for example, Microsoft, many of the Home Street Bank, many of our wonderful community partners come in and will help us go through projects that we just simply don't have the time or resources to tackle on a yearly basis. And so those are wonderful ways to get involved. Individuals that want to take a deeper dive into the organization, we have a board of directors for people that have unique skill set that want to really understand and support the mission. That's a great way.
It sounds like the route that Ryan went.
Exactly, exactly.
Right.
And then we recently, in 2012, established an advisory council to help raise awareness and to help support fundraising efforts. Fundraising is critical for any nonprofit, but for an agency such as Boyer, that's really been our lifeline. And so for individuals that would like to, attend one of our special events, the auction again November 8th, or participate, we're doing a lemonade stand this month in August where individuals can come to the organization and pick up a prefabricated lemonade stand kit and and support the organization. So we want to make sure that at any level, which is, we recognize that any gift is just an incredible show of support for their organization. And so people shouldn't feel that what they can offer would ever be turned away, because we are appreciative of all levels of support.
And your website?
Boyer, BOYERCC.org.
Boyer, BOYERCC.org. Well, I want to thank you both so much for being on today, Michael and Ryan.
Thanks so much, Dave.
It's been a pleasure.
And thank you for listening to today's conversation with Michael Stewart and Ryan Maxwell with Boyer Children's Clinic. We'll be on next week at this time with another passionate voice in the community who is changing the sound one life at a time. So until then, remember to shine a light and stay sound. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Spotlight on the Sound. If you would like more information on any of the guests or organizations featured on this program, or if you have recommendations or suggestions for future programs, please email webmaster@salemradioseattle.com or call 206-443-8200. That's 206-443-8200. Thanks for listening today, and join us again next week at the same time for Spotlight on the Sound.